You think you have seen the world. You have scrolled through travel feeds, watched documentaries, maybe even packed a bag and gone somewhere far. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could prepare you for these places. Forget the postcard cities, forget the famous landmarks. What we are about to explore are towns so strange, so wildly specific in their identity, that they challenge the very definition of what a normal place is supposed to be. These are not just travel destinations. These are proof that somewhere on this planet, people looked at ordinary life and said no, and then built something magnificent instead. Let us begin. Our first stop is Colmar, France. From a distance, it looks like a painting someone forgot to finish. And that is exactly the problem. It looks too perfect. The canals run slow and green, the half-timbered houses lean in impossible colors, pink, yellow, cobalt blue, and flower boxes overflow from every window. Locals call it Little Venice, but that nickname undersells how surreal this place feels in person. What makes Colmar cross the line from charming to genuinely unsettling is the scale. This is not a theme park recreation of medieval France. This is a real functioning town where people buy groceries and argue about parking under buildings that look like they belong inside a fairy tale book. Walking through Colmar feels like your brain keeps trying to remind you that places like this should not still exist. And yet here it is, refusing to apologize for being extraordinary. From a fairy tale, we move to a place that looks like science fiction. Cappadocia, Turkey is not just a town, it is an entire region that forgot to follow the rules of geology. Thousands of years of volcanic eruption and erosion carved the landscape into towering stone formations called fairy chimneys. And ancient civilizations did something completely logical in response. They moved inside them. During Kuyu, one of the underground cities carved beneath Cappadocia goes 11 stories deep into the earth and once housed up to 20,000 people. Above ground, hotels are dug directly into the rock, restaurants sit inside caves, and every morning dozens of colorful hot air balloons rise over the stone towers at sunrise, creating a scene that looks like a dream sequence from a movie you have never seen but somehow remember. Cappadocia does not ask for your belief. It simply exists and dares you to explain it. Moving from underground cities to a city that lives above the water, Giethoorn, Netherlands, has no roads. Read that again. No roads. The only way to get around this village of fewer than 3,000 people is by boat, bicycle, or on foot along narrow wooden paths. Every house sits on its own small island connected by arched bridges, more than 170 of them. Cars have never touched these streets because there are no streets. What makes Giethoorn feel bizarre is not just its layout, but the sound of it, or rather, the absence of sound. No engines, no horns, just the soft pull of a wooden boat through a canal and the occasional splash of a duck landing in the water. The Dutch call it the Venice of the North, but Venice has motorboats and tourist congestion. Giethoorn has silence so thick it feels almost aggressive. After the silence of water, we arrive at a place drowning in noise, color, and extraordinary purpose. Burano, Italy, is another canal island, but this one operates on a completely different visual logic. Every house here is painted in a different bright color. Not subtle pastels. We are talking electric orange, shocking pink, acid yellow, and deep cobalt blue sitting next to each other without apology. The reason is both practical and beautiful. Centuries ago, local fishermen painted their houses in bold colors so they could identify their homes from far out at sea through the fog. What started as survival logic became one of the most visually striking places on Earth. And Burano's weirdness goes deeper than its walls. The town is also the birthplace of a specific lace-making tradition, so intricate and time-consuming that only a handful of elderly women in the village still know how to do it. A place this colorful, this tiny, and this close to extinction of its own art form. That combination is something you do not forget easily. From Italian islands, we travel to a town that built its entire identity around the end of the world. Long year buy-in, Norway sits deep inside the Arctic Circle on an island called Svalbard and holds one of the most extreme rules of any town on Earth. It is illegal to die here. That sounds absurd until you understand the science behind it. The permafrost is so thick and so cold that buried bodies do not decompose. In the 1950s, they discovered that corpses from an old cemetery were perfectly preserved, including the still infectious Spanish flu virus from 1918. So the town made a decision. If you are terminally ill, you are flown to the mainland. If you die unexpectedly, your body follows. Longyearbyen also bans cats entirely and once had more polar bears than people. A town where dying is technically against the rules and a wild predator outnumbers the residents. That is not eccentricity. That is a completely different kind of civilization. From the Arctic, we travel south to a town where the architecture itself is the mystery. Setenil de las Bodegas, Spain, is built directly into a gorge with houses and shops constructed under the overhanging rock face. Imagine a cliff that decided to become a ceiling, and below it, a perfectly normal town with a bakery, a post office, and a bar where locals drink coffee. The rock does not just loom above the buildings, in some cases, it literally is the roof. The sensation of standing inside this town is equal parts architectural wonder and mild existential panic, as though gravity and geology have agreed to a temporary truce that could end at any moment. What makes Setenil feel truly strange is the casualness of it all. The people who live here do not find it remarkable. They are simply having lunch under a 2,000-ton rock, and they would like you to stop staring. After geological drama, we need something slightly more festive, and nothing fits that description better than Ivrea, Italy, a town that once a year turns into one of the largest food fights in human history. The Battle of the Oranges is not a food festival with a cute name. It is a full-scale citywide combat simulation where 9 teams on foot throw oranges at armored riders in horse-drawn carts, recreating a medieval revolt against a local tyrant. Thousands of participants, tons of oranges, streets that run orange with juice for 3 days. And here is the detail that pushes it from festival into absolute madness. If you are not wearing a red hat, you are fair game to be hit. Participation is considered civic duty. The oranges are not small, and they are not soft. Medical tents are not a precaution. They are a necessity. Ivrea turns violence into tradition, and tradition into identity with a commitment that would make any sports fan genuinely rethink their definition of dedication. From a war of fruit, we move to a town that declared war on the concept of death itself, but with considerably more beauty. Chefchaouen, Morocco, is a city painted almost entirely in shades of blue. Walking through it feels like descending into a cool, quiet ocean that somehow has stairs and doorways. The blue tradition dates back decades, and there are competing theories about why it started. Some say it was Jewish refugees who painted blue to symbolize heaven. Others say it repels mosquitoes. Others say it simply happened and grew into something no one can stop anymore. What matters is the result. A labyrinth of blue alleyways where cats sleep on blue steps, and blue-painted flower pots hang from blue walls. And because Chefchaouen sits high in the Rif Mountains, the light at every hour of the day hits the blue differently. At noon, it is electric. At dusk, it is almost impossible. Arriving here does not feel like travel. It feels like stepping inside someone's most carefully designed dream. Moving from one kind of blue to another kind of strange. Monsanto, Portugal, was once officially voted the most Portuguese village in Portugal, which sounds like a straightforward honor until you see what it actually looks like. Monsanto is built entirely between, around, and on top of enormous granite boulders. Houses do not sit beside rocks. Houses are constructed using the rocks as walls, floors, and ceilings. Some buildings have a boulder for one wall and a human-built wall for the other 3. The village grows up the side of a hill like a living organism that ran out of flat ground and decided that was not a good enough reason to stop building. There is a castle at the top that is mostly indistinguishable from the rocky landscape because it has literally merged with it over centuries. Monsanto is what happens when a town refuses to choose between nature and civilization and just decides to become both at the same time. From Portugal's stone giant, we arrive at a town that found fame through tragedy and turned it into something unforgettable. Oradour-sur-Glane, France is not eccentric in a joyful way, it is strange in a way that stops your breath. On June 10, 1944, Nazi soldiers massacred 642 people in this village, men, women, and children, and burned it to the ground. But here is what makes Oradour unique in all of history. The French government decided not to rebuild it. The ruins were preserved exactly as they were left. Burned cars still sit in the same streets. Sewing machines still stand in collapsed workshops. A child's bicycle still leans against a crumbling wall. A new village was built nearby for survivors and their descendants to live in, but the old village stands as a permanent, open-air memorial, frozen in 1944 forever. Walking through it is not tourism. It is something heavier and stranger than that, a conversation with an afternoon that refused to end. After the weight of that history, we need something that tilts fully into the absurd. Hallstatt, Austria, is a beautiful lakeside village in the Alps, and it has been copied completely. In 2012, a Chinese developer built a full-scale replica of Hallstatt in Guangdong Province, China, including the church, the market square, and the mountain backdrop recreated in construction material. The original Hallstatt residents were horrified. They had not been consulted. They woke up one day to discover their entire town existed twice on Earth. What makes this bizarre is the reaction from Chinese tourists. They began visiting both. The replica, called Hallstatt China, now attracts its own steady flow of visitors who want to experience an Austrian alpine village without the plane ticket. Meanwhile, the real Hallstatt has become so famous from all the attention that it now struggles with over-tourism, a town that accidentally created its own competition by simply existing too beautifully. That is a uniquely modern kind of strange, from duplication to isolation. Whittier, Alaska is a town of approximately 200 people who live almost entirely inside a single building. The Begich Towers is a 14-story apartment block that contains the town's residences, a post office, a grocery store, a medical clinic, a church, and a bed and breakfast. Nearly the entire population of Whittier goes from bedroom to office to grocery store without ever stepping outside. This is not a choice made out of laziness. It is an adaptation to extreme weather conditions. Whittier receives more than 20 feet of snow per year and sits inside a mountain pass where wind and temperature make outdoor movement dangerous for much of the year. The town is only accessible through a single tunnel that also serves as a railroad track, meaning cars and trains share the same narrow passage on an alternating schedule. Whittier is not a quirky novelty. It is what human civilization looks like when it decides to keep going no matter what the environment throws at it, from one extreme to another. Croatia holds the official title of the smallest town in the world. Population? Between 20 and 30 people depending on the season. But operates with the full seriousness of a proper medieval city. It has a mayor, it has city walls, it has gates, it has a church, it has a cemetery, it runs elections. The winner of the mayoral race is technically the mayor of the smallest governed municipality on Earth. What makes surreal is not the number but the attitude. The people of do not consider themselves a curiosity or a novelty act for tourists. They consider themselves a town, a real ancient, proud Croatian town, just one that happens to fit inside a single photograph. That stubbornness, that insistence on full civic dignity, regardless of scale, is the most extraordinary thing about a place full of extraordinary things. Almost at the end now, and few places deserve a spot here more than Fordlandia, Brazil. In 1928, Henry Ford, yes, the car manufacturer, bought a massive piece of the Amazon rainforest and built an American Midwestern town inside it. He wanted to grow rubber for his tires. He brought in American workers, built American-style houses, served American food, and imported American culture into the middle of the jungle. It failed spectacularly. The workers revolted, the rubber trees got diseased. The wildlife and climate were incompatible with the experiment in ways Ford refused to accept until it was far too late. Ford abandoned Fordlandia in 1934 without ever visiting it himself. What is left today is an eerie ghost town slowly being swallowed by the jungle, American water towers rusting beside the Amazon River, a movie theater returning to vines, houses with no roofs full of forest. Fordlandia is what happens when ego meets geography and geography wins. And our final stop brings us somewhere that defies easy description. Slab City, California, is not technically a town at all. It has no running water, no electricity grid, no government, no laws in any practical sense. It is a patch of desert in Southern California where people have simply chosen to live outside the system entirely, building structures from salvaged materials on an abandoned military base. And yet, it has everything a town needs. It has an art installation called Salvation Mountain that has been hand painted by one man for over 30 years. It has an outdoor music venue. It has a library. It has a community. What makes Slab City genuinely strange is not the lack of infrastructure. It is the freedom it represents and the people it attracts. Artists, veterans, people running from something, people running toward something, and people who simply decided that the normal structure of modern life did not apply to them. Slab City does not ask for permission. It does not have a permit. It just exists, loud and proud, in the middle of nothing.